XRP can never go to a high price because it has bad tokenomics. In this video, we're going to be breaking down this theory and talking about whether or not this is true. A lot of people point to the 100 billion XRP and all the XRP Ripple releases on the market and says, how is this token ever going to reach the prices? Many people say it could. In this video, that's exactly what we're going to be breaking down, so make sure to stick around for this whole thing. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to like these videos and subscribe to the channel. These two simple things really do help me out so much. Also, if you ever need a place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So this is a video I'm very excited for because I think it goes to one of the biggest misconceptions in the XRP ecosystem. And that has to do with XRP not being able to go to a high price because essentially it has bad tokenomics. A lot of people look at all these different cryptocurrencies with a really low circulating supply or a really low total amount of cryptocurrency that will ever be issued on the specific chain and say, how can XRP ever go to a high price when there's billions of XRP available? They also point to Ripple selling XRP and talk about how they're constantly inflating the total amount of XRP in the circulating supply. And these are two big things that people often point to on why XRP can never go to a high price. Well, guys, I'm here to tell you that most of those people have no idea what they're talking about, and we're going to break this down in a couple stages. Now, the first thing you need to understand is that XRP, in my opinion, has some of the best tokenomics in the cryptocurrency industry. They're dead simple. There's 100 billion XRP total, and that total amount of XRP is ever decreasing. XRP is constantly getting burned from existence through transactions. Now, a lot of people look at Ripple selling XRP onto the market and say, oh, that is causing inflation to the XRP supply. No, it's not. That's completely wrong and an incorrect way of looking at inflation. Inflation is the printing of money, new money coming into circulation. But that's not necessarily happening in the case of XRP. Technically, XRP is never inflating, it's only deflating. Yes, sometimes one holder, which is Ripple, adds more XRP to the market, but it's not new XRP being created, it's just being held by someone else. Just in the same way, if Satoshi or Michael Saylor started dumping Bitcoin, that wouldn't be inflating the Bitcoin supply, it would just be new Bitcoin coming onto the market. So it's really important to make this distinction. There's no new XRP ever being created. In fact, the total amount of XRP is only going down. It doesn't matter who holds those XRP. The point is every single day, XRP, the asset, becomes more rare because it's only being burned out of the ecosystem. There's no new XRP ever being net created. This is one of the most important things to understand because this makes XRP's tokenomics superior to almost every other cryptocurrency out there. If you look at most cryptocurrencies, explicitly things like Ethereum and anything that's proof of stake, you can see that the total amount of Ethereum and many of these other cryptocurrencies is actually going up. Here we can see right now that almost 1 million Ethereum was created just in the last year alone. And that's not new Ethereum being sold by the Ethereum Foundation or large whales dumping Ethereum. That is literally new Ethereum that didn't exist before now being created. This is fiat 2.0. This is just new coins being created, and that's real inflation. That's what I call bad tokenomics because that means technically there can be 10 times more Ethereum in the next 10 years and severely devaluing the Ethereum that any holder might be holding. That's not the case for XRP. It doesn't matter who's selling XRP from where. The truth is your XRP is only getting more valuable because it's becoming more rare. The total amount of XRP is only going down. So this is the big thing that a lot of people get wrong right off the start. People have no concept that the XRP supply is capped, and in fact, only going in a down direction. Meanwhile, they talk about all these other cryptocurrencies, right, that are being hyperinflated, more tokens being created out of thin air, and they are attracted to these tokens just because they don't understand how these things actually work. They might say, oh, well, all these tokens have already hit the circulating supply, but they're literally creating more out of thin air. In XRP's case, no new XRP tokens are being created. Therefore, you're not ever being devalued like you are on all these other networks. The other thing that people often point to is the fact that there's 100 billion XRP and other tokens might have 100,000. Well, once again, that doesn't matter. It just matters what the overall market cap is, right? It doesn't matter if you have 10,000 tokens, right? But each one is valued at $1. That's still a 10,000 market cap project. But with the XRP ledger, you have 100 billion. So you just have a lower price for each individual token. Doesn't make any difference. In fact, for the token to go up in XRP's case, it's actually much easier for something like Bitcoin because people are more willing to buy a large amount of XRP because they feel like they're getting more units of the token. So this whole idea that there's 100 billion is completely non-consequential to the price movement of the asset. In fact, in many cases, it makes it easier for XRP to go up in price because there's unit bias and people are more likely to feel like they are able to purchase a significant stake of XRP. So these are two very simple things to completely shut down right off the rip. It doesn't matter how many tokens there are in existence. It has absolutely zero implication on how much the price of the token go up. It just means it's starting at a different starting point rather than starting where Bitcoin started maybe at the same market cap where it was 10,000, XRP is at $3. But it doesn't make any difference if XRP doubles or Bitcoin doubles. It makes no difference. It takes about the same amount of money to do so. And then when you look at the overall inflation of the network, people look at XRP and say, oh, it's inflating because Ripple's selling, but it's actually the exact opposite. And funny enough, every single time Ripple sells, it actually burns XRP. It's a deflationary event, taking XRP out of existence, something that almost no other cryptocurrency project actually does. Almost all of them are inflating and creating new tokens out of nowhere, massively devaluing the people holding the spot token. With that said, though, I want to take a look at something else that I thought was extremely interesting. And this was actually Phil Kwan. He put out a great post talking about XRP's tokenomics. And he said, Ripple and their co-founders have too much XRP and keep dumping it. That's the criticism. He said, this is criticism I see so much because on paper, it looks like it's true. Ripple and its founders have sold a lot, and I've also thought about it deeply. But was this just bad tokenomic design? In my conclusion, no. The critics are wrong. It was actually one of the best tokenomics ever, and I agree. And this is why he thinks that they created the perfect environment for success. First of all, there are many reasons people are often give or sell, like decentralizing ownership. So Ripple right now is decentralizing ownership of the supply of XRP. I won't go into them because I feel they have been tackled by other blockchains through airdrops, etc. Instead, my thesis is actually that this tokenomics is actually one of the key reasons that XRP has succeeded. Why? So he's saying that Ripple choosing to selectively sell XRP to specific people is likely a reason for success rather than projects that this just print infinity tokens out of nowhere, give them to random people through random airdrops or random staking rewards. He's actually saying, no, Ripple actually holding the supply tight and distributing it selectively, he believes is better than what a lot of these other projects are doing that just spray free tokens all over the place. So let's see why he thinks that logic is correct. And let me tell you right now, I think he is absolutely correct. There are way too many free tokens just being passed out of nowhere, creating dumb inflation to different chains, and those tokens are adding very little economic value. He says, number one, because its stewards were all heavily incentivized to make it succeed. Remember that XRP started from literally zero. They actually made it worth something. And today, the top dogs have made hundreds of millions, some of them billions. They were not rewarded for this. And don't forget that. All of the original creators at Ripple, apart from one, still own XRP. Which other blockchain has this same lineage and can stay the same? Vitalik is the only other co-founder still at Ethereum. There were 8 in total. And remember, Ripple and the XRP ledger's creators didn't make money in a vacuum. XRP is up 120,000% since it started. Early believers in the XRPL were rewarded together with its creators. They went on this generational wealth building journey together. And how about Ripple? Its massive holdings of XRP are massive, yes. But importantly, this has a purpose. It's a war chest. And it has enabled Ripple to keep building through bear market after bear market, taking swings at massive missions. People who say Ripple and XRPL creators were given too much XRP feel like socialists. They're socialists who pursue equity and end up making everyone more poor. Those critics don't understand that to create wealth, you need to reward those who generate it. One of the greatest lessons from Silicon Valley is that to make something successful, we need to ensure that its creators become very rich in the process. In conclusion, did Ripple's XRP creators get a lot of XRP? Yes, but is this a bad thing? Absolutely not. I've come to believe it is actually one of the best things. You just need to look at the facts. Anyone saying that the same success could have been achieved by them getting less XRP or handing out all this XRP to other people are completely wrong. The tokenomics have long been forgotten, but it's simple, proven, and works. And I absolutely agree with what he's saying here. It is something that almost no one pays enough attention to. What Ripple did was absolutely genius. What they did was they said, hey, rather than giving out these tokens to a whole bunch of people who are going to blow this wealth on a whole bunch of random stuff, rather than airdropping these tokens to random individuals who are just going to sell and put it in meme coins, rather than giving out these tokens to people who are doing absolutely nothing for the success of the network, rather than doing all these dumb things with this pristine economic value, let's keep it and funnel it to the appropriate places. Let's use it to beat people like the SEC and get XRP to be non-security. Let's use it to purchase people like Hidden Road. Let's use it to purchase people like Rail. Let's use it to build out the XRP ecosystem. Let's make sure that if we are selling these tokens, we're selling it to people who are going to be holding them for the long run. What Ripple did was make sure those tokens end up in the right hands and make sure that the XRP that is being put out there is going to some of the most important players in the financial ecosystem. One thing that not a lot of people understand here is Ripple's goal has never changed. David Schwartz put this out just the other day, and it's so important to see. He said that XRP is well positioned to serve as critical infrastructure for the world's financial system. This mission never changed from Ripple. There's a lot of people in the XRP community who have really low hopes for what XRP can one day become, but the vision has never changed by Ripple. They believe XRP can be critical world infrastructure for the next generation financial system. And if that's the case, they don't want to hand out the XRP token to a whole bunch of nobodies and put it in the hands of people who could be malicious or don't matter. The XRP tokenomics are better than some of any other token on Earth. They didn't give it out to nobodies. Instead, they chose to create an anti-inflationary token and put it in the hands of the most powerful institutions and corporations on Earth. In my opinion, this has allowed XRP to be one of the top cryptocurrencies in the market, and I believe is going to allow XRP to amass more value than almost any other project in crypto. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update, and for now, Mickle out.